is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Digital Manufacturing Talks. My name is Tyler Fenhouse. I'm the marketing manager for Symphony AI Industrial, and we've got a phenomenal informational talk lined up for you today, which is titled Digital Worker, Product and Process Safety in Food and Beverage. As many of you may know, Symphony AI Industrial is a leader in industrial AI solutions in digital manufacturing, plant performance and optimization, and connected worker. Symphony AI Industrial is a Symphony AI vertical. There are several Symphony AI verticals. You can see them there on your screen. And we are one of the largest, if not the largest, enterprise AI companies with more than 1,600 customers and 3,000 employees. We are presenting on the GoToWebinar platform this morning, and we have a lot of people on the call this morning. So you will be muted throughout the presentation, but we still want your questions. At the end of the presentation, you will be able to ask Wout, our presenter here, questions, and he will answer them right here live. So make sure you're typing in those questions on the question panel. You will see that to the right of your screen. There should be a panel. Click on questions, and you can type those in there. So make sure you're getting those questions in. We also will be asking you questions in the form of multiple choice poll questions. So be on the lookout for those as well. All right, Wout's got a lot of information to go through this morning, so I'm going to hand it off to him, and we're going to get this talk started. So, Wout, take it away.
Thank you, Tyler. Okay, welcome everyone. So first, a small introduction from my side for this webinar. I'm Wout Depoot. I'm based in Belgium. I have a master in engineering and an MBA, and I am actually, as of today, a product expert at Proceedix. What does this mean? On a day-to-day basis, I help digitize the workflows of our customers, basically support them with implementing Proceedix on their shop floor. The mission of Proceedix is, of course, very straightforward, connecting the frontline worker. And of course, this means that we are trying to digitize work instructions and inspections, or a combination of both, as much as possible. And we are active in a lot of industries: chemicals, food and beverage for today, but also pharmaceutical, assembly, utilities, and even aerospace. Now, today's agenda looks like this. So first, we have that small introduction. Then we will talk a bit more about frontline workers in general in food and beverage. Talk a bit about the technology to help those frontline workers to really connect them. Then we will move into a demonstration, how all of this can look like for a operator on the floor. We'll talk a bit about integrations, and in the end, we also have some use cases lined up. A 5S audit, a line changeover, inspection, and at the end also we have that pathogen environmental monitoring use case I will talk a bit about. Let's first start with a poll question. So is connecting the frontline workers on your agenda of the management in your company, yes or no? It's a high priority. We will take action between the first 12 months, or it's only for next year or the 2 years after. Or you say, okay, there are no perceived needs for that, or we've already taken care of that.
All right, and you can just go ahead and click to vote there, right there on your screen. If you haven't yet, go ahead and click to vote. Looks like about half of you have, and it's just a radio button, so go ahead. All right, looks like a couple more of you have voted. Go ahead and get those votes in, and we will keep things rolling. A couple more seconds. Get it in if you haven't voted yet. All right, let's take a look. And looks like we got a split room. High priority and awareness. 50-50.
Yep.
All right. Back to you, Wout.
Thank you, Tyler. Yeah, that's also what we're seeing nowadays. Most of our customers are really starting up connecting their frontline workers. And it's mainly a high topic, at least for the next couple of years. So it's really high on the agenda of the larger companies. Now, a bit about frontline workers in food and beverage. What do we still see nowadays is a lot of those images like you see over here. On the one hand, we still have a lot on paper. The checklists that look like this, as you see, indeed, they are filling it in, your operators. Someone from the administration department receives this and types it in a computer, and so on and so on. A lot of room for errors, possibilities for typos, and so on. And of course, a lot of time wasted in administration. And of course, documents like this that are more instructing the people are also still quite let's say, shown a lot on the shop floor as well. They contain a lot of information, almost too much information. Experienced operators, you are bothering them with that amount of information, while maybe new operators still have to look their way through the paper like you see on the right. So yeah, a lot of paper still on site. Nowadays, you'll be amazed at about how much paper is still used. Now, this poses a lot of challenges, of course. Well, if you have those documents, well, they are good for reading, but an operator has to stop working, start reading, and after reading, he can continue working. So it's really not a document you can fill in or read through while you're actually doing the job. Very important, and definitely more and more important, is that there is no execution trail. For instance, if you have auditors coming in, maybe they want to have proof that you indeed did that 5S audit or that Gemba walk or etc. 3 months and 7 days ago on a certain production line or department. Well, it's difficult to prove that with a paper. You will have to get a map full of, a folder full of papers and have to start looking for the correct paper and so on. Thirdly, there's no to limited feedback. So what we have is a lot of operators are going through documents. If they have like improvements or they want to address an issue they come across and so on, it's very difficult for them to address this to the correct person. They do not know who to send it to. There's really no way of giving any feedback to administrators and the people that set up those files. And that brings us immediately to the fourth part as well. It's really not matching your workflow. Let's say that we improved a checklist, we added a step between step 5 and 6. Well, then you have to start looking all around your factory where those documents are hidden and placed. You want to replace them by the newest version. You do not always know for sure that your operators are working with the correct version and so on. So it's really difficult to know whether everyone is using the newest version, let's say. And of course, there are a couple of challenges that we will have to face more in the future as well. It's not compatible with personal assistance tech. So let's say that you want to start using remote assistance. Well, a combination of a paper and remote assistance is very difficult, of course. Also not, and that's already a bit more futuristic, if you want to start implementing the use of smart glasses on your shop floor, well, then it's also very difficult to have like a document like this, put it on a smart glass, which is a very small screen, or even maybe on a smartphone. Well, it will not work. It's just too much information for the dimensions of those screens. And then, of course, which will definitely become very important in the future, is content personalization. So having the ability to give the exact same instruction or inspection to an experienced operator and they can skip certain questions, while maybe a less experienced operator or maybe someone that is entirely new can also use the exact same workflow but sees more information. So really adjust your procedures based on a skill level of an employee will definitely be a big topic in the future as well. That brings us to a solution to all of this. So what a solution must bring is it must split up those workflows into very small pieces, make it clear language, make it snackable in a blink, make it also accessible while working. So make sure that it fits on, for instance, a smartphone or a tablet or even smart glasses. Make sure the operator can still run around and start doing or continuing the work he or she was doing, while also going through those inspections or instructions. Make sure it matches your real workflow. So you want to know if there was an update, you want to know 1 second later that everybody has the newest version. And finally, one we just discussed is it must match your previous information needs. Make sure that there is like skill level based instructions. Make sure that you're not bothering experienced operators with too much information. But on the other hand, you also want to make sure that trainees that get an on-the-job training also know more than enough information to do the exact same job. And then, of course, if we're looking into devices that can be used, as already mentioned, they can be used for monitoring, but also for informing them, okay, there is an instruction, what should be done, when should it be done, how should I do it? And then, of course, you also want to record all of that. You want to create a lot of valuable data. Maybe you want to look into a line changeover instruction and you want to see the task duration per step per operator, start comparing all of that. So maybe then you can learn that some operators are in need of extra training. Some operators are encountering more issues than the others, and so on. So you can learn a lot about what they were doing, how they were doing it, when, and who was actually doing it. And that creates a lot of valuable data to do data-driven decision management afterwards on that data. But as you see, indeed, everything is used nowadays, smart glasses even, or a palm device, which is a very small pocket smartphone, or a smartphone that you put on the wristband, so the operator still has his or her hands free and can still do his or her job, tablets, and so on. All of that is used nowadays. And that brings us immediately to the second poll question. Which devices are currently deployed and used for connected frontline workers in your company? Desktops, tablets, phones, smart glasses, or watches? Only desktops, tablets, and phones, only desktops, or maybe even none, and you're still using a lot of paper.
All right. Second poll question, again, just click the radio button to vote. Looks like about half of you already have. Whoever hasn't voted yet, please go ahead and click to vote, and that'll kind of guide Wout's presentation moving forward. So, all right, looks like about 70% of you have voted. A couple more seconds, go ahead. All right, let's take a look here. And again, it's split three ways. 33% all the way down the board. Nobody, luckily, is still using paper, it looks like. Back to you, Wout.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, that's actually funny because we keep monitoring this from time to time when we're doing a lot of different webinars, and we see it's moving more and more towards a combination of indeed desktops, tablets, phones, and less paper. Of course, we are 2022. We have to start digitizing our connected frontline workers. This brings us immediately to the technology. So what can we do to connect those frontline workers? How can we improve the usage of those standard operating procedures? How can we bring the inspections and instructions in a snackable and an easy way to the operator, so they immediately know what to do for this specific step, then they get the next step, and so on and so on? How can we guide them and structure and standardize, in the meantime, all of our procedures, maybe even across different plans of your corporation? Well, it's quite easy, actually. You see an instruction document. You see over here an instruction document. What you see is like each time a sentence is a certain instruction. So what you can do is actually break up an instruction like this, break it up into very small, we always call it Lego blocks, building blocks, and make sure that if the operator needs to do the first thing, then the operator should only see that first thing. So really break it up into very small pieces and bring that one small piece to the operator at that specific point, then bring the second thing and the third thing and so on. So we're really not bothering them anymore with too much information, and you're just breaking up your documents into very small steps. For each step, you can then add as many cards as you would like, and those cards either explain the step, a PDF, an image, a video that is explaining how to do a certain task. But on the other hand, you can also combine it with inputs that you're asking from the operators, fill in a value that you just measured, take a picture, record a video, fill in a multiple choice question, fill in a description, fill in a priority, a due date, and so on and so on. So that's really how it's set up, step after step after step. And for each step, we add as many cards as we would like, either to explain that step or to ask input from the operators on that specific step. Must-have features on a connected frontline worker platform are definitely the use of conditional paths. So you see it already over here, and you will also see it during the demo. Based on the response an operator will give at this specific step, we will guide them through here, or through here. And this is basically whether the oil level is okay, whether there is dirt available. Well, if it's okay, then they will actually see this. If there is dirt, they have to do some other things, maybe inform someone that there is that cleaning is required. And otherwise, maybe in the third example, everything is also okay, and they can start the production answer. So really what you're doing with conditional paths, you're not bothering the operators. Let's say that over here there is no dirt. Well, then we're not bothering the operator with information about having to clean that dirt or having to inform someone that there is dirt on a certain spot along the production line and so on. Action flows, kappa, action management, also very important. So give operators really the ability to escalate if there is something wrong. Give them the ability to capture some information, some context information, and send that to someone. That person that it's sent to can then follow up on the issue, and if the issue is resolved, you can close the issue. And this way you're sure that your issues are first of all logged and traced, and then secondly also followed up on by the people that are responsible for resolving those issues. Also, another one is notifications. If your operators are really doing, let's say, a 5S audit or a Gemba walk or an instruction in general, then maybe at the end of that instruction or inspection, you want to be notified as a team leader or as an operations manager. Maybe you only want to be notified if issues arose during that audit or during that changeover. And so on. So maybe you want to immediately receive that email containing a report of everything the operator just did on the ground floor, and so on. So make sure that there is that you have the ability for automatic notifications and automatic email notifications in general. Then another one is offline capabilities. Nowadays, most of the larger corporations have connection in the factories, but it happens so often that there are like small, let's say, blind spots within the factory, and you don't want your operators to always have to walk towards an area with good connectivity to fill in something and then go back and again and again. So really you want to make sure that the software you're looking for is capable of handling also offline situations, and of course also the constant switch between on and offline. You want to make sure that they can still continue doing their work even if they are offline or in areas with low connectivity. Another one that is important, scheduling. Make sure that you as an administrator can schedule certain workflows for certain operators at very specific points in time. Make sure that you can schedule in a recurrent way, that you don't have to do it every time manually for one audit, for instance, but make sure that you can schedule, an audit the second week of every month on Monday and Friday. I'm just saying something as an example. Custom reporting, also very important. Definitely, if you're looking towards the inspection side, you want to be able afterwards, after that an audit was done, you want to be able to immediately print out a nice looking report that has the exact same template as you might already have today on paper, that has your logo on it, and more importantly, that has the information in it that you really want to show to, for instance, an auditor. BI dashboards also more and more important, because what you have to understand, of course, with a digital tool like this, you create a lot of valuable data. Afterwards, you can learn a lot from it. I will also, during the demonstration, show a part of that. What can you do actually with all of that data that you're creating in the application? Maybe you want to use it to train your employees better, look into issues that arose over time, and you want to have a look, okay, apparently on production line 1, we have a lot more issues when the morning shift is working. Why is that? Is there a product that is more difficult to make, and so on and so on. So you can really learn a lot from all of that valuable data, I would say. And of course, the last one is maybe even the most important one. Not one customer is looking anymore for a standalone software nowadays. Make sure that you really have the ability to integrate. Make sure that you can link a platform or a tool like this to SAP, to an MES system, to a quality management system, and so on. Make sure that if, for instance, within Proceedix they launch an issue, make sure that it automatically creates a ticket for the quality department in your quality management system, and so on. So really make sure that you have that ability as well. Now, how does this look like from a platform point of view? Within Proceedix, there are three, let's say, parts that are important when a company wants to digitize their workflows. First of all, we have a portal, which is a web page on which you create and manage all of your procedures. So you digitize over there all your inspections and instructions, and that's typically done by an administrator within a company. The second part is, of course, the execution part. So all of those documents, SOPs, and instructions and inspections that you just digitized can, of course, be executed by all of your operators. That can be done on a phone, on a tablet, on a computer, even on a smart glass. It doesn't matter whether it's iOS, Windows, or Android. All of those are supported, and of course, device agnostic as well. Now, while executing all of those workflows, those operators are creating a lot of valuable data. And that brings us to the third part, you really need to have the ability to analyze all of that data and make sure you can really look into that afterwards again. Maybe you want to print out a report of one certain specific audit or inspection. Maybe you want to look into the task durations for a certain changeover on a certain production line across all of the operators. Then you can move more towards BI tools, of which I will also show an example, and so on. That brings us to the demo. So we will also run through the demo in the exact same way. First, I will show you how you can set up those workflows. Secondly, we will do the execution from an operator standpoint. And then thirdly, we will look into all of the valuable data that we just created. We will go to our portal over here. We go to our demo company. And I have a folder in there specifically for this webinar with a couple of procedures in there. Those are all three procedures for food and beverage. And then we also have an escalation procedure, because if we are carrying out one of those three procedures as an operator, well, then we also want to have the ability to escalate all of this. Let's look into, for instance, the first one. It's a procedure to inspect your production line in certain possible parts. And what you see over here is that we also have a flowchart editor where you see indeed it's built up step by step by step. First, we will ask to the operator, okay, are you completing a shift VCIL, yes or no? And then you already see the conditional logic over here. If they fill in yes, then we will also let them go through those two tasks. If it's no, we don't want to bother the operator. No, then we follow this path, and you will not see those tasks in the application. Then we will have a weekly selection, because based on whether in which period you are, you will have to go through some extra steps. If we select weekly only, then we have to go through these two steps. If monthly, then these two steps. If weekly and monthly are selected, then you will have to go through all four steps. And the final one is, of course, if it's not applicable, then we can just skip the step and finish off the execution by signing off our procedure. What is important, it's quite easy to, let's say, add an extra step. We will drag one from here, and we will say, we will call this one wear safety boots. Okay, we will make this task mandatory because it's an important task. So on each task level, you can say it's a mandatory task, yes or no, meaning that an operator cannot skip that task. There are use cases where operators are not allowed to skip any task, and then we just make all of the tasks mandatory. Or, of course, you can leave more freedom to the operator and say, okay, they can choose themselves which tasks they really want to complete. Okay, we created this one step, and now we also are going to add some cards. Let's say we will give some text to the operator, wear your safety boots. Okay, and then we will also add an extra other card. So as already mentioned, we can add as many cards as you would like to a certain task, either to inform the operator, okay, do it like this and this through an image, a video, text, and so on. Or on the other hand, also ask input from the operator. So let's say over here, as you see, we have a long list of templates cards, let's say, either to inform them through an image, through a PDF, but also a video, audio, and so on. And then also ask input, let them fill in dates and times, let them sign off things, let them take a picture, multiple choices to be filled in, scan certain things, and so on, fill in values, record videos, and so on. But let's say over here, we are going to select also maybe an info image, and we will upload an image. So let's go to, I have one over here. Let's see whether there is someone with a safety boots. Yeah, it doesn't matter. We can, let's say we are going to upload this picture. Okay. It's uploading that picture. It's added to that step, and we're going to save that one. Then per card, so it's on a lower level, on a task level, you can again say, okay, this is important information or not. Maybe the operator only has to read this and does not have to have a look at the image we just uploaded. No, then we can say, okay, the first card is a significant one. We save it, and then we say for the second card, okay, it's not significant. Experienced operators know more than enough by just reading this, and they can just go to the next step. But maybe people that just started do not know which safety boots in particular they have to take on. well, then they can also have a look maybe at an optional image and so on. So either on a card level and on a task level above that, you can indicate this is important information or not, and this way you can really play with the skill level of your employees and make sure that experienced operators are not bothered with too much information, while you can still use the exact same procedure for your on-the-job trainees, for instance, and that still has a lot of or more than enough information to complete that one procedure. Maybe you can even use it for training purposes. Okay, important information here as well is if we go to the version step, from the moment me as an administrator starts to update this procedure, it immediately creates a new one. So basically all of the operators are still working with the fourth one, but I as an administrator am already updating the procedure because maybe we had to introduce that new safety step. Well, then actually it's immediately automatically creating an edit version, and it's only when I as an administrator say, okay, this version is now okay, we can actually send it out. Then I can say, okay, we will commit and activate it, and 1 second later all of the operators will have that updated version. So there is versioning, you know who changed what at which point in time between certain versions. Then there's also the permission step, and over here you can define for all of the different operators, or maybe even a group of operators, okay, this operator can execute this workflow, that user group can also execute it, but maybe another operator or user group cannot execute this workflow. And basically over here you will define which operators will see this specific procedure in their application, and they will actually be able to carry it out. The other operators will not be able to carry it out. And then per operator or per operator group, you can also define whether they can or cannot escalate issues throughout this workflow. And as you see over here, my operator will be able to carry out this procedure on all of the production lines. And apparently he is also able to launch in non-conformity, more in an optional way, but also secondly, when he pushes the decline button, which is the red button, which typically indicates something is wrong, okay, then this operator will also be forced to even escalate it, because typically if they push the red button, something is wrong and someone must be notified that there is an issue. So again, a high level of configurability across the portal to make sure that you also can cover a lot of different use cases within one company. It's also what we see at Proceedix. We are typically used within quality, but also within maintenance or operations. Yeah, we're used for a lot of different use cases within the same companies. Okay, that's it regarding the setup. So really the first part of this demo, setting up all of those workflows. As you see, it's fully no code, it's quite straightforward. And typically after a couple of hours of training, our customers are able to set up 95% of their workflows already themselves. That's also what we strive to be. We strive to make our customers as self-sufficient as possible, because it's just a win-win situation, of course. Okay, now we go to the second part, executing all of those workflows, and we will execute the exact same workflow. Therefore, we go to the application. This is our Windows application, which is actually the tablet version, as you could say. I'm over here logged in as my operator. Again, this is just an example. I called my operator Wout. It could also be that you have it first name, last name, or maybe you want to combine different operators where you say, okay, I don't need to know who specifically did it, but at least I want to know that it was team A that did it, or shift 1 that did it, and so on. So really that depends on the level of traceability you want afterwards. If you really want to be able to trace back that a certain specific person did something at that point in time, well, then it's best, of course, to use first name, last name. If you don't need that level of traceability and you just want to have it locked, well, then maybe having a kiosk or a team user might be more than sufficient. Over here, you see 3 procedures that I can actually execute. You can either work through the procedures list, or you can also say, okay, for every operator, we are going to schedule in everything that they have to do for that day. So as you see over here, I have 2 to-dos, which are actually actions that were sent to myself that I still have to do. And then basically the operator comes in the office, goes in the morning, goes through the to-do list, sees that he or she has to do 30, 35 items. They just work, complete item after item after item. But okay, this is also a possibility where we say, okay, you see 3 procedures over here. There are a lot more procedures within this demo company, but those 3 procedures over here are the only 3 procedures that I as an operator can actually execute. So that's why, okay, we can start this CI Vision, CIL procedure, the one we just showed in the portal. First selection we have to make is we want to make sure that we select a certain production line. Of course, typically this is a predefined amount. It's not every day that you create a new production line, but maybe you also want to scan another asset using a QR code. And for that, I will have to disable my camera. So let's say we're going to scan. You can either select production line 2, but you can also scan it. So I have the QR code linked to that value over here. As you see, okay, I scanned it. And maybe I'm now, as an operator, going with a tablet. I'm next to the start of the production line 2. I scan the QR code that is attached to that production line 2, and we start our procedure. As you see over here, we only see 3 tasks. Why is that? Because remember that we discussed over here in the flow editor, this one we will not yet see because we did not push the newest version. So we can even actually elevate it if we want to. But as you see, it really depends on the conditional logic. So based on the response we will give over here, we will be guided through this path or through this path. And we will then see also extra tasks. So right now, we're not yet bothering the operator. Imagine that over here, we fill in no. Well, then we will be guided through this path and we will indeed not see those extra tasks appear. So I will actually do that now. As you see, indeed, no extra tasks are added over here. If we now go back and change our response to yes, well, then actually you see that extra steps are added. So that's really how the conditional logic works. We're not bothering the operator with too much information. No, we only want to ask them the required information. If there is no shiftly CIL, then we don't want to ask those 2 questions. Otherwise, we do want to ask it. What is important, because we changed our response now at the beginning from no to yes, we actually want this to be logged, and Proceedix logs and traces both of that. So we will see that afterwards when we are reviewing the details. I will show you that indeed we changed our response from no to yes, and that's traceable. So we can look back which responses were filled in by the operators and whether or not they changed their responses. Okay, we have a shiftly CIL, and for that we have to go through some extra things that we have to do. For this specific step, we have to go through 3 cards. All of the cards are lighted up as red over here, so all of them are mandatory. You also see that at the bottom right now, we cannot yet go to the next step. We do not have any button to do that. So we first have to go through all of those things over here. We have to scan our conveyor ID. Again, it's a QR code over here I will scan. But it can also be a barcode or other types of codes that you want to scan. Okay, as an operator on a smartphone or on a touch-based device, we can now swipe to the next card. I'm now, of course, on a computer, so it's more clicking. We have to inspect the bottle conveyors for broken slats or excessive wear. Okay, we continue. We're at the end, and then we still have an extra card that is saying us, okay, visually watch the conveyor, looking for any broken slats or excessive wear. And as you see, because we were at the 3rd card, first we gave an input at the first one, and we then had to read the 2nd and the 3rd one. Because we did all of that, we can now continue to the next step. Okay, let's proceed. What is important, we're now at step 3. At every point in time as an operator, you can go to the overview and say, okay, we can put this one on hold. Maybe I have my lunch break today at this point, and I want to continue after my lunch break. Okay, put it on hold. Afterwards, I go to the unfinished list. I click this over here, and it immediately brings me back where I actually left off before lunch. Okay, we're at the 3rd step. Let's still say everything was okay, but maybe over here I want to add also an extra image. You could either do that by adding predefined cards, an input picture card, an input video card, and so on. Or you could also again leave that up to the operators, and they can select themselves. Okay, I want to add a note over here, or no, I want to add a picture over here, and so on. So let's say we're going to add a note, and this will be added specifically to this step. And then afterwards, you will also see that we can look into those notes and those pictures and so on. So let's say this is a webinar. Okay, we want to test notes. Maybe it can be used as feedback to optimize your procedures afterwards, or maybe it's just a way of for operators to add some extra metadata to this one execution. And maybe let's add also a picture. We will take one ourselves over here. I will take one of myself. You could add a comment if you want to, and you can also draw on it. Let's say we're going to draw in green. Let's say there is an issue over here. Someone needs to be notified of that. I'm just logging it, adding it to this specific step, that there might be something not okay. Someone has to look into it, maybe. And we continue. As you see, both attachments are added, and you can, of course, add as many pictures, videos, and so on that you want. Or, of course, again, you can predefine it and force operators to take a picture, force them to take a video, record a video, and so on and so on. As you see over here, all of those 5 steps, and there will be even more based on the selection I make over here, because there is, again, conditional logic. All of those steps have a red triangle in front of them, and that basically means that all of those steps are mandatory. So for each step, we said, okay, the operator has to go through it, otherwise they cannot yet finish off the entire workflow. And you can see that by going to the overview. Right now, we're not yet able to finish off the workflow. Only when we will actually also complete the final steps, only then we will be able to also finish off the workflow. But again, it's a choice. If you say that no task is mandatory, you can also disable that setting, and then you could already maybe even at step 3 finish off or complete your workflow. Let's say over here it's a multiple select, so it's not a multiple choice question. You can select more than one response. If we are selecting weekly, if we go back quickly to over here, if we want to select weekly, then we will be guided through here and we will see those 2 questions. If we select monthly, then those 2. If we select weekly and monthly, then we will see all 4 questions. And if we select not applicable, then we will always, we will never actually see some extra questions. So let's say, first of all, I will select weekly. As you see, indeed, those 2 questions are added. If we now change our response from weekly to monthly, other questions are added. And if we now do weekly and monthly, you will see that all 4 questions are added. Okay, we continue our path as an operator. Make sure everything is okay. Turn the button over here from closed to open. Then we have to inspect the light bulbs, and over here we set it up in a different way. We again have 2 cards, but as you see, we can already see the buttons. So over here we said, okay, an experienced operator knows more than enough by just reading this and having a look at this, but maybe we want some extra optional information in there for on the job trainees. So now we can already continue as an experienced operator, but maybe on the job trainees can have a look, and this is some extra information. Make sure to open the CI vision door and ensure that the lights are on. And that's it. Okay, we go to the end. Then we're at the air conditioning. Again, over here there are 2 cards, but this time again we said, okay, both cards are important. In this case, we have to check whether the air conditioning thermostat is working properly, yes or no. Should be between 80 to 85 degrees. We switch to the next one, and we want to fill in that value. Let's say, first of all, we fill in a value between 80 and 85, so everything is okay. Then it lights up green, so we set those boundaries. Let's say that we now fill in a value outside of those boundaries, 89 for instance. Well, then we can still continue in this case. We could also force it in a way where we say, okay, if it's outside of the boundaries, they cannot even proceed and they even have to decline. It's also a possibility. In this case, you're again giving a bit more freedom to the operator. If the value is outside of certain boundaries, well, they still see that it's in red, but they can still proceed if they want to, or they can decline it. Let's say over here, that we are declining it, and then we are going to be forced as an operator to really decline, to really escalate this to someone, let someone know that the thermostat of the air conditioning is displaying more than 85 degrees, for instance, in this case. We decline, and in this case, indeed, we're forced to launch a non-conformity to someone. We can select a certain group of people it is sent to, and then the first one that sees it takes it up. We can send it to certain people, specific people of that group, or we can even have it predefined that I as an operator cannot choose anymore who to send it to. For instance, it's immediately sent to the quality department, and so on. We want to send this issue or let someone know of this issue, but we also, of course, have to add some context information. Again, this is configurable, but this example is just asking for a description, which is a mandatory input again. The priority must be inputted. Due date is optional. We can add a due date if we want. Okay, can you please fix it by next week, Monday, for instance, and then add a picture. But again, this one is optional again. So it's asking us again for 4 extra inputs. Those 4 inputs, out of those 4, 2 are important, are mandatory. The other ones are optional. But in general, the idea is that we send this to someone else. That person needs to know what the exact issue is, what it is all about, and how to resolve that issue maybe immediately as well. Let's say over here we are going to send it to my operator, because then in a second I can immediately show you that indeed I received this action in my to-do list, and I can immediately follow up on that specific issue. Right now we cannot yet send the action. That's because those 2 inputs are required. So let's say over here the thermostat on the air conditioning is displaying 89 degrees Celsius, which is way too high. This needs to be looked into. Okay. Next, we had a priority. Let's say this one is a medium priority. As you see, we can now send the action. I will still fill in the other inputs just to show you that, for instance, we can also say should be fixed by Thursday, the 10th of November, maybe also even add a time. That's also a possibility. In this case, it's only asking us for a date. And then maybe also we want to add a picture. So let's say we're going to add, I'll attach one from the disk. Let's say we're going to have a look at our webinar visuals. And let's say that we want to add a, let's say over here, a checklist. Okay. And let's say the issue is over here. Okay, it should be resolved there. And we send off the action. As an operator, we now continue our work. We are at the final step. And we have to sign off. Okay, we went through the entire checklist and we sign off as an operator. We proceed. We're now at the end. And as you see right now, we can finish the workflow because we actually went through every specific mandatory step. And now we are able to finish it off. We will now go to the to-do list because we now completed as an operator our entire workflow. But of course, during that workflow, we also escalated an issue to someone. And we now actually see, okay, there was indeed a non-conformity apparently launched to myself, was done by operator Wout, which is the exact same operator right now, a couple of minutes ago. On production line 2, on this specific step, in this specific procedure, we see a description and a priority. We click on that, and then we will immediately see some information, okay, requested by this operator and so on. So this is really the context information that was added, the picture, the due dates, priorities, and so on. And right now, this action, as you will see, is again another workflow. In this case, it's a more general workflow. Did you follow up on the issue, yes or no? And based on this response, we will again see other steps. It could well be that as operators are doing those audits, they can only come across, let's say, 10 different issues. And you can then have 10 different action procedures from which they can select. So they can select which one to escalate to someone else. And this person then receives this and does not have like more generic questions. Did you resolve it, yes or no? No, it could immediately contain like 20 instruction steps to fix this specific issue for the maintenance department. So then they just have to go through this and resolve the exact issue. But okay, there are 2 ways: either do it more in an instruction way and immediately give some steps to fix this specific issue, or make it more generic and let's say it's more a follow-up on the ticket and make sure that everything is done. Let's say that the issue is resolved, we push the decline over here, then we still have to put the action on hold. Once the issue is resolved, you can close it off. But of course, over here, let's say that it's closed, we can actually, right now, we have to say, okay, which actions that you take. The thermostat was broken, we changed it, right now it's displaying the correct temperature again. For instance, so we display, we actually record the steps that we took to fix this issue. We sign off again as the quality department, and then we close off the action by just finishing it off. And as you see right now, I don't anymore have 3 to-do items. Right now, I only have 2 left in my to-do list, non-conformities again from another demo. That's it for the second part of the demo. So as you see right now, we create those workflows, we executed those workflows, and now we want to look into all of those execution details. So we want to analyze everything that we did in the application. And for that, we will go to our history application tab. We will look into all of the details for the demo company, and also within the last couple of days, so let's say the last 3 days, we want to see all of the details and all of the things that happened. As you see, a couple of things happened in the last couple of days, some oil checks, and also this morning we did some that procedure to test it, of course, in front. And then right now we did indeed that CI Vision, CIL checklist, that procedures. We went through it as an operator. We sent the non-conformity from one operator to another, which is in this case the exact same, and you always see the timestamps as well. And this is more a general high-level overview, let's say. We can dive deeper and click on it, where we see all of the information that we went through, how long it took us, what was the lead time, the total activity duration, and then per step you will see the start and stop time of that step, which operator completed that step. And this is important information because it might be that you have workflows of, let's say, 100 different steps. The first 50 have to be done by operator A, then the next 20 have to be done by operator B, and the final 30 have to be done by operator C, and they each time have to transfer the workflow from one to another. Well, then it might be interesting that you know per step which operator really completed a certain step. And then, of course, you also see the location per step. Maybe you want to combine locations and lay them next to the path they should follow within a factory, and then maybe see that, okay, that operator clearly filled in everything on at his desk. Well, that's not possible, and so on. So you can again learn a lot from that. For every step, you then see whether you push the proceed or the decline button, and you then also see which inputs were given over here. So apparently over here we selected yes. Well, we also first selected no, if I'm correct. So let's have a look. Indeed, as you see, we first selected no over here, and then the second time we changed our response from no to yes, so we can really trace back everything that happens by an operator. Maybe first they fill in no, and then they see, okay, now I have to do some extra things, I don't want to do them, I change my response to yes, and so on. So you can really look back and see everything they did. You also see per step whether we scanned something, so really all of the input that was given as an operator. Over here we added through the plus button a note and a picture on which we drew something. Again, you see all of the times what we selected over here, and so on. At this specific step, we pushed the decline button, and because of that, when we fill in, of course, the temperature was too high. Because of that, we had to launch that non-conformity where we said, okay, the thermostat was displaying too much degrees Celsius, priority was medium, and so on. So you can really look into everything, and then in the end, of course, you also see your signature that you signed it off with. All of this can immediately be downloaded into custom reports, and this is because I have to refresh, sorry for that. Each hour we have to refresh our login to the portal as a matter of security, because typically administrators at companies leave their computer open, and that's because that's why we have that refresh. So let's say over here we want to download that specific instruction into a report. Let's have a look over here, and you can immediately download all of that, of course. As you see over here, we have your logo, all the information you would actually want to see over here. On the other hand, per step, you see all of the different steps, and you see whether you push proceed and decline. You see actually all of the information and the input we gave, the signature we added, the action we launched, and so on. So this is really to look into, let's say, you have an auditor coming in and you immediately want to prove to them, okay, we did a 5S audit. Here is everything that we went through 3 months and 7 days ago, and this is the proof. Now, this is really to look into one specific execution. So now let's say where we want to look into more an overall point of view, and for that we have an example of a Power BI dashboard. Typically we use during demos an oil check procedure. It's not a specific procedure for food and beverage, but the idea is always, of course, the same. And let's say we are going to look into the last 3 months of that oil check. Apparently, it was carried out 163 times. How many times across time was it done? It was apparently most of the time already finished, but there are some that are cancelled, some that are transferred, some that are ongoing. Maybe I want to filter the view on the ongoing ones, and then you see, okay, when did it happen? Which operator went through those executions the most, and so on and so on. So of course, a high level overview. Let's dig it a bit deeper where we see all of the different steps of that workflow. Per step, you see which operator went through it. How many times did we push the decline button as an operator? How many times the proceed button? You can again filter the view on the decline on the declines, and then you see how many times it happened per step and by which operators, and so on. Another example could be that you want to look into the different task durations per step, where you see the four steps, and you then actually see a box plot on the different task durations. So typically, for instance, if you do a line changeover, you want to reduce those box plots per step as much as possible, because you want to have a task duration spread that is as low as possible. Why is this one the longest? Typically, we use this procedure for demo purposes, and this is really the step where we talk the most. On the other hand, internally, we also use it for testing purposes, and then we go through everything very quickly. And that's why you see that there are some operators with a very low task duration and other operators with a very high task duration. Of course, if you want to be able to forecast procedures, production as best as possible, then of course you want to narrow that down more towards over here, and so on. So you can start comparing task durations per operators, per tasks, and so on. You can look into Gantt charts, like over here. Everything went well. You can see that they always push the proceed button. Maybe we want to compare all of the operators across all of the tasks based on their average task duration. And we see that Anderson apparently over here is taking very long on average, 1.89 minutes, compared to all of the other operators on this specific task. Should we train Anderson more often on this? Is Anderson encountering issues we do not yet know of? On the other hand, this operator is doing everything very quickly compared to the other operators. Is this operator doing it correctly? Is he or she doing it at his or her desk, and so on? And then in the end, you can even go towards locations where you can immediately see where in the world this specific execution was carried out. So yeah, this is just an example of what is possible with all of the data that you create through a tool like Proceedix. Now let's go back to our presentation. I have a couple of slides left. I will try to go through them quite quickly. Another important part is the ability to integrate as well to other systems. So making sure that you can blow in information from your ERP, MES, LIMS, CMMS system into Proceedix and reuse that data there. On the other hand, you also want to reuse the information from Proceedix in another system again. So for instance, you're escalating something in Proceedix to someone, and you want as well that a ticket is created in a quality management system, and so on. Now, what is also interesting is that you want to connect to other applications like remote assistance, but also IoT tools. Maybe there are torque measurement tools or some other tools from which you want to immediately read in values. So the operators do not have to have a look at the value and then type it in themselves anymore. And so on. Maybe throughout a certain execution, you want them to use a certain product. They have to scan a barcode on that product. It checks in SAP whether it's still valid or whether it's already past the expiry date, and then returns to the operator, yes, you can use it, or no, you have to throw this one in the bin and take another one, and so on. So make sure that a lot is possible on the integration part as well. Now, what are typical use cases within food and beverage, line monitoring, shift monitoring, changeovers, so instructions, also cleanings, and then also, of course, inspections afterwards before you are starting up the line again, whether everything is okay, and so on. Line supplies, start-stop interventions, escalating is there very important. Quality controls, Gamba walks, 5S audits, maintenance, of course, very important as well. TPM repair, EHS monitoring, and then of course also sample processing. And it's typically the operators we come across are quality inspectors, technicians, team leaders, also of course operators in general, and then also process engineers. So there's a very wide range of use cases within a company. Okay, and this brings us to our final question. Okay, what is the primary or would be the primary driver for a connected frontline worker in your company today? Is that more towards quality? Is it more towards reliability, productivity, or is compliance the most important thing nowadays?
All right, fantastic. One last poll question before we get to asking your questions directly to Wout. So make sure you go ahead and vote, and then we will get to those live questions. We got about 5 minutes, so let's try to get those votes in very quickly. Looks like more than half of you, 70% of you voted. All right. Looks like we got about everybody. Let's take a look. And split room all morning. Reliability and compliance. So that very interesting there. Wout, fantastic job. We did. Are you done? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to jump the gun.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You can
Okay,
take
good deal. Looking at your questions, a couple of you asked if this recording is going to be available. Yes, it will be. I will send it out to anybody that asks for it. It'll be available shortly after we close up shop here. And then we had an individual ask if we could have a copy of the deck. Woot, I don't know if you have a PDF version of this or something we can send out. Obviously, the demo wouldn't be available, but we will definitely get that out to that individual. All right, let's take a look at some of these other questions. Some people are asking for us follow-up. We will definitely have someone from our team reach out. Let's take a look at some of these other questions. All right, Woot, can we reuse the execution data generated in Proceedix in our other internal systems?
Yeah, so indeed, as you saw, all of the execution data that can be that is generated by those operators is placed into an SQL, a SQL database. This can be provided to the customer, can immediately be linked, as you already indeed saw, on through a Power BI dashboard or a Tableau or so, or maybe reuse that data internally, again in SAP, set up integrations between that database and your internal systems and so on. So that can definitely be provided to the customer to reuse elsewhere.
Awesome. Okay. Got a couple of people saying great presentation, Woot. And okay, here's the next question. What happens if an operator is in areas of low to no connectivity?
Yeah, it's also an important one. You want to make sure that your operators can still continue their doing their job, and you want to make sure that you choose or select an application that is offline first, meaning in this case that once an operator goes into an area of very low connectivity or no connectivity, well, then the device, the software goes into a offline mode. Everything that happens and that is done by the operator at that point is placed in a queue on the device. So it's really stored on the device. And once a connection is found again, typically when the devices are charged, for instance, well, then everything starts to synchronize. And only when the synchronization is complete, only then the data is removed from the device to make sure that you cannot have any data loss.
Fantastic. All right. Okay. Next question. Is it possible to transfer executions from one operator to another? One operator starts the procedure, carries out the first 10 steps, and then the operator 2 needs to continue the workflow. Is that possible?
Yeah, that's definitely possible. You can transfer it to predefined people, so that operator A cannot immediately or not anymore select whom to transfer it to. You can make sure that they can select someone from a group or select the entire group, and then from that entire group, the first one can take it up, or someone else from that group takes it up and it is removed from the others to-do list, and so on. So all of that is definitely possible within Proceedix.
All right, awesome. Okay, next question. What happens if an operator changes its input in the application? Are both changes recorded?
Yeah, indeed. So that's already what we indeed saw during the demo. If an operator changes their response from yes to no, then afterwards all of that can be reviewed. Maybe you also want to write some custom logic to that. So you receive an email if an operator changed their response. Maybe you want to immediately see that as a traceable part in the report afterwards. If you print it out, that you immediately see, okay, an operator changed their response over here, and so on. So you can easily follow up on that and make sure that everything is as reliable and compliant as possible.